Good morning. Welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering finance on this year, Tuesday, Rise and Shine, and give God the glory. And today we're looking at a topic: embargo sanctions works when nothing to offer or no other options. So, no other options. So that's our topic for today. When you have no other options than embargo and sanctions work. And so this is what we're going to look at today as I look at my setup there. So welcome again, top of the morning to you here. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for your word and for the blessings of this day. I pray the Lord you may be with us as we start together and may you guide us along for Christ's sake. Amen. So, so I'm looking at this topic here, which is embargo sanctions work when nothing to offer or no other options. So if you have no other options and somebody sanction you, and primarily talking about United States sanctions you, then it will work greatly. But if you have other options and you have something to offer, it will sanction you. The sanctions won't work or won't have the effect. You will have some effect, some negative effect, but it won't have effect. So this is what I'm doing here to cover my theme, which my theme for this week is when negative or destructive characteristics develop in a culture to the point where the founding fathers or founding principles they establish are strange or unknown to the current children of the kingdom. So, very interesting here what we're looking at. So, we start off again with Luke chapter 23, verse 23. Luke 23, verse 23 onward. And it says here, and they were instant with loud voice, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voice of them and of the chief priests prevailed. So here you have a situation where the secular king is in a tight situation, and the voice of the chief priests and the rulers of Israel prevailed. They were calling for the death of Christ and for the release of a murderer. And this is important because remember now, Christ represents the culture. Christ is the one that established the culture. So Christ is the righteous person, healing the people, teaching the people, blessing the people. And yet, these people who now sit in the seat of Moses, they have the control of the government or the control of the leadership of Israel at the time. They're calling for the death of a man who is righteous, even if they didn't believe he's the son of God. A man who's righteous, who I guess their problem with him is that he claims the son of God. And for this reason, they said that he must die. And somebody that was healing the people, blessing the people. So you can see how far human beings can go in their delusion. And this is similar to when you look at the story of Satan, that Satan himself, who cannot create life, cannot breathe the breath of life, cannot maintain his own life, decide he's going to rebel against his creator. Very strange how sin can get us into a situation where it becomes ridiculous. So when I think about this, I think about the concept of sanctions and embargo. Sanctions and embargo work in the sense that if it depends on who you're sanctioning. Now, the problem here is that Christ submitted himself as the Lamb of God to die, but there was no way they could kill him. Does that make sense? He had the greater power, but they went after him anyhow, just like Satan. And the thing with sanctions is that it looks like it worked and it has developed into a massive, what you call it inside of the United States, it's a massive, I don't know, operation where they're the sanctioning country. And it's very interesting. The Bible points this out and they become the country that fulfill this as the sanctioned country. You can't even get away from that. As I call it, America is the mark of the beast, sanction embargo country. And it's siege warfare. If you understand what siege warfare is, you starve a country until they submit. So when you look at this idea here they're going after Christ. The thing is that Christ already had said he was going to submit to this abuse. So no problem there, right? He's already going to submit to it. But it's not like they could have taken him, so to speak. They had tried many times through his 3.5 years worth of ministry or time of ministry. And he always slip away. That should have told him that something is supernatural about this person. But at this point now, he submitted. And we understand Judas himself, who betrayed the Lord, thought he probably was going to slip away another time and he was going to be able to, Christ was going to get away and he was going to be able to keep the money. But it didn't happen like that. Christ submitted, and Christ was telling him, I'm going to submit to this. So when we have this idea now of embargoes and sanctions, it's something that I've observed. So this is not something that I needed theological understanding or historical understanding to understand. I'm going to frame the discussion for you here, and I hope you can listen to me and survive this. Is that it's framed in my mind as a child. And to me, what a sanction is and an embargo is, my topic is really from childhood. And so my topic again is embargoes and sanction works when nothing to somebody have nothing to offer I'm talking about it now from a child point of view, a young person point of view. If somebody have nothing to offer and there's no other options. So in other words, if I go over to Johnny and I have that written on my paper, I'll probably get back to this later. And I go to Johnny and say I want to play. And Johnny's parents, primarily probably a female, say I can't play with him. And they sanction me and embargo me and block me. You know, Johnny's toys is only for Johnny. It only works if I don't have anything to offer, or I'm gonna have some probably self-esteem problem, or I really have no other option. There's no other Johnnies in the town. There's probably another child that's named Johnny Cash, and I can go play with him. That's the only way it works. It doesn't really work if Johnny parents tell me, no, you can't play with him, and his toys is for him alone, and no toys for you, and that's it. That's the only way to work. So if I say, oh, I want to go, say, ride Johnny's bike, but I have a bike. Well, I have a bike. I just wanted to ride his bike. So you see, it only works. And so I knew this from a child. So that's why it kind of was baffling for me when I especially deal with people in church and in other areas. And I'm like, they don't want you to play with their toys. I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to. We're just being friendly. I was just being friendly to Johnny. Actually, I was on a rescue mission for Johnny because Johnny was about to turn an incel because Johnny's under his mom's skirt. And I saw this growing up as I became older. How many young men I knew that their parents think that they were better than everybody else. And it seemed a lot of the time, it's in my experience, it was a lot of females do this, and then they created these young little incels. And I know now multiple young men that I grew up with that their parents were like, oh, they're the best, they're the greatest. And now they're incels in their 30s, 40s, and they have no friends, and they're video game experts and stuff like that. So this is something I've seen personally. So everything you hear me say here, most of the time you might think I'm talking about international politics. I'm just really talking about what's going on local, on the ground here. And I said, there's a female I know, 3 sons, all of them incels. I'd be like, how did that happen? It's like, and I watched it happen. Oh, no, they're the special, they're the greatest. And they're going to turn out to be so weirdos. So that's the reality. So I'm going to go back to my text. And you see, I'll flesh it out for you. You'll be amazed at how this works. If you understand it locally, especially Revelation 13, which I'm going to go to, you understand it internationally. It's the same thing because remember, you're dealing with just some grown children. And somebody says, oh, no, but they're in charge of the country. Yes, they are. They're crazy. So notice here, Luke chapter 23, verse 23 again. And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voice of them and the voice of the chief priests prevailed. They're really being silly here. It's not going to work. They're going after the Son of God. They're done. But they don't see it because they're thinking, oh, no toys for you. I'm going to take away your life. I'm going to take away whatever. They don't say that they were destroying their country. And today it's the same thing. It's the same thing in Israel. You hear me here, you probably be baffled when I say it's not going to work the way they think. And somebody say, why? Because there's history. It does not ever work that way. And there's a history of you grew up and you see this type of stuff. They think they're better than everybody else, and they always work out terrible for their kids. Notice here, and Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. No, they required. Notice the emphasis Luke puts on it. The crazy people thinking that they're going to win. And you've seen them. They isolate themselves to their own destruction and suicidal. They're suicidal. Notice here, and he released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired, but he delivered Jesus to their will. Wow. You don't want to be delivered to these wicked people will. But that's coming our way. That's what the Bible tells us will happen to the righteous. And as they led him away, they laid upon one Simon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it for Jesus. So we assume that not even Jesus could have bear the cross. It was too much that they have to give it to a Cyrenian. And there followed him a great company of people, and of whom which also bewailed and lamented him. But Jesus turning unto them said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourself and for your children, because they're going to have fentanyl problem. Just imagine, as I always say, if you went to the daughters of, notice here Christ point to the daughters that were weeping, as I often will do here. And you go to the daughters of Tennessee or Alabama, Mississippi, and you say, listen, don't weep for the black people who their community is being destroyed by crack. Weep for your kids, because the same people, like the Shackler family, who will one day fill your community with dead bodies. And it's going to be the children of the kingdom. They're the children of the kingdom. If you ever have a time, type in the fentanyl people, opiate people, whatever they call them, and type in the Shackler family. You look at them. All of them are children of the kingdom. And look at the method that they're being accused of that fill the society with opiates. You can't say that this is Mexicans that fill it with opiates. It's the children of the kingdom doing it to their own children. But when it was being done to the in the crack epidemic time, Reagan made sure secured that we didn't do anything about it. And the black people couldn't do anything about it because they're defenseless. They can't defend themselves against, their former Jim Crow people and slave owners. So how they can't defend themselves against that? They're sitting ducks. They can't do anything about it. And with drugs, people have developed like tolerance for the drugs and just want more. So the addiction just ravaged the community. But now you look at the daughters, the mothers that are weeping their children that are dying of drugs. And they say, why didn't something put in place to stop it when it was ravaging the black community? And the reason why, because the people who could stop it, they didn't want to, because they're in a function of trying to keep one group down and promote themselves. So when you see the results, you say, oh. See, but when people are doing these things, they don't think, wait a minute, the wicked people doing this. Hearing something yesterday, and they were saying that Donald Trump, when he gets into power this year or next year, he wants to, what he wants to do, when Donald Trump gets into power, he wants to send the American military into Mexico, I guess to attack Mexico to stop the, what do you call it, the cartel, right? He wants to stop the cartel. Oh, wait a second. Okay. So he wants to stop the. So Donald Trump, when he gets into power, he wants to stop the drug cartel by sending the American military. Something somebody was saying. I haven't heard it, so I'm just repeating here because I find it weird and fanciful. That he wants to send the American military into Mexico to stop the drugs. Is the Mexican cartel responsible for the drugs in America? I didn't know this. This is amazing. It's always somebody else's fault. But when it was time for them to stop it, they didn't. So that's why Christ says, but he turned into the daughters of Jerusalem and said, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming in which they shall say, blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bear, and the paps that never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, fall on us, and the hills cover us. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry? If they can do this to Jesus Christ, you think they're not going to do it to you? And see, this is the issue with sin. Sin, a person might believe that if a person is a garbage person, they're only going to be garbage to the other people over there because I'm saved, because I'm one of them. I'm one of them. The problem is, like Christ was saying, Christ was the system. Christ was the child of the system. Christ is the best there it is. Remember, they chopped off John the Baptist's head. John the Baptist is the son of a priest, a higher level priest. If they're not sparing the best in the system, you think they won't spare you? But there's people in our society believe that, oh, they only gonna do it to the people, say in Iraq, or they're gonna do it to the Russians, as I'm gonna get to in a second, or they're gonna do this thing to that. But they'll do it. They're doing it to themselves. Yeah, as I say, which group of people on the planet is more experimented on? Who dies the most of cancer? Not just cancer from meat, but cancer from chemicals that are flooding the system. Who has the highest rate of cancer death? Who has the highest rate of suicide? Who has the highest rate of opiate deaths? Where are the opiates coming from? Who have the high rate of oxycontin, oxycodone, whatever, Percocet? Those things are legal drugs that are built by the American pharmaceutical. I would think if you want to send in the military and attack somewhere, you should attack Central Jersey, the Republican Wealth Belt, where they have all the pharmaceutical companies, because that's the source of these things. Somebody said, well, oh, but it's the cartel. Really? You really believe that? The cartel ran prescription? But this is what they have the people going on, and the people are deceived. So when you think about that, Christ says, listen, if they're doing this, when you see them bombing up somewhere and killing all these people, you understand, I said, that's coming home, because those are the same monsters that are lurking in around our communities. But people don't think like that, because they say, oh no, they're not going to do it to us. Really? And you believe that? I mean, you really believe that? So notice here, my thing now, because I'm going to get into this embargo discussion and sanction, that I've realized most people are ignorant of what a sanction is. But I understood sanction from when I was a child. Because what I know is that you can tell me that I can't play with Johnny, as I said. And it's true. I might not be able to play with Johnny, but it will hurt my feeling. Because if I went to school with Johnny, and, after school, hopefully I did my homework, and then I say, I want to go find somebody to play with. And I go over to the house of Johnny. And then Johnny mother tell me, I can't. I'm not talking from trauma, because I was kind of homeward bound myself. And I had my friends, it was too much sometimes. So they have to hide. But I'm go over to Johnny now, and Johnny mother like, no, you can't play with him. You're probably not good enough. I've realized when I was in my teens that it didn't work for Johnny ultimately. Now, it might hurt me at first, but I'm like, oh man, I guess I'm not the best. But I realized that Johnny started becoming isolated because mommy and daddy wouldn't want you to go over and play with him. See, so at first I started realizing, oh, it's negative also for me, but it's negative for Johnny. Johnny's taking a hit. What I didn't realize as I watched this type of stuff play out is that over the years, what would have happened, it would have gotten worse for Johnny. Because Johnny now, instead of it working good for Johnny, it worked negative for Johnny. What I didn't know is that when I came to America and I started seeing this behavior also here, and it was worse, because now it was on a larger scale. That it would have led to. You see, I didn't understand that it would have led to incel behavior. It would have led to all this suicide and depression. Because you would think the person who isolates themselves and say, no, I can't be with you because you're less than me, that person would be great. But what I'd realize is that the person be like, no, I can't play with you. And then the good person go in their house and shoot themselves in the head and commit suicide. And I'm like, what in the world? What is going on? And I started realizing, oh, I see what we're dealing with is not, it's the whole culture is like this. And what I'm going to show you real quickly, next few minutes, is that we have a market beast culture. And the end result of that market beast culture is not that it's so great that we're sanctioning everybody and we're winning as a country. What we're doing, we're losing. Sanctions don't work. Embargoes don't work. It might hurt the other country, but it backfires on the person doing it. You can go around life and say nobody can drink at your water fountain. But ultimately, why does it lead to someone's suicide? Because somebody said, Lord, it's a coincidence that the country that is always say, you can't play with my toy, is the country that's most suicidal in the world, it seems. I think only Japan and South Korea. And I don't know about them, like why they, I think Japan is number one and South Korea number two for suicide and depression. I'm not, I've dealt with Japanese, but only in a religious context and very few because I don't think they're very religious. And South Koreans. So I don't understand why they top the list. They beat everybody else. So are they, do any, you know, Japanese or South Korean? Are they like, don't share your toy also? But why the areas that has the most ingrained culture in America for embargoes and sanction, and you know you can't drink at my fountain? Why do the most depressed and most drugged up? I think the highest penetration of opiates in the country is in Tennessee area. What is it about them that make them like the Bible Belt that make them so suicidal and depressed? You have an answer for that? So, but I've observed this when I was young. Because what it is, yeah, ultimately you can't go over to Johnny's house, but then Johnny's isolated. Then Johnny have only his mother to react to, and then Johnny starts behaving like his mother, and probably want to have the attention his mother has. Very strange. So you see this because he has not that male counterpart to hang out with. So just sometimes it's just too much female influence. So we find this to be the case. So what's going on? I'll read to you Revelation, and then I'm going to go to some examples. So to show you, because most Americans, I realize, they're convinced in their mind that the embargoes against Russia, against Iran, against North Korea, against Cuba, against the only country that does this is America. And somebody say, why, Lord? I don't know. It's part of the culture. And I'll show you in a second. Notice Revelation chapter 13, the prediction of America, the last empire on the globe before Christ comes. Revelation 13, verse 11 says, I beheld another beast, which is a wild animal, coming up out of the earth. We say that America comes up out of a place that is not developed, out of a place that is not well populated. And he had two horns like a lamb. So the horns are like a lamb. Most people say it's a lamb-like beast. This is misreading. There's nothing in the Bible, Spirit of Prophecy, that says that. That's total error. Read it again. I read it for you again, and then look at it in your Bible. Bible says America has two horns. The horns are like lamb. But it spake as a dragon. Spake is past tense. That means America always speak as a dragon. Slavery, Jim Crow, war, war, war. So again, the country is predicted by John 2,000 years ago that there's a country that comes at the end of the time, and it comes up in a place that is not very populated, and it has two powers. We understand the two powers in America is the separation of church and state, which is republicanism and Protestantism. These two powers are separate powers, and they're lamb-like because it's democracy. It's a government by the people for the people, and it's a church that is Christian in nature. So the two entities that run the country are viewed as they're like Jesus, or they're lamb-like. They're very innocent. But when they open the mouth and they speak the laws of these institutions, and when you hear these pastors preach and these politicians talk, they speak for Satan. You know, just somebody, war, 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 war. You know, or they very racist. Like we belong to a church, the Seventh Adventist Church is a segregated church. The Southern Baptist and the Baptist Church are a segregated church. But you say, oh, look, they look so innocent. But black people worship it over here, white people worship over here. All right. So there's more we can go on, but we keep going. And notice now, he says he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So we understand the healing of the wound will come fully. This is not fully fulfilled, as they would say, until persecution breaks out, because that's the full power of the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church had power, but the power of the Catholic Church was to kill Christians, to kill innocent people. And so the Catholic Church still does not have that full power, but it's saying that says the America will develop to a point where it will reestablish the full power of the Catholic Church. And this we can see developing with the sanctions. Because what is a sanction? It's basically a siege warfare. And America is it seems like the only country on the planet that does this. Notice here, so his deadly wound was healed. Notice most of this talk is in past tense. Notice here, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire to come down from heaven on in the earth in the sight of men. So he says he's going to do similar to the Elijah story, but now it's going to be the false prophet. That's another way the market is looked upon as a false prophet. And you can see this today with all these pastors and these Strange religion. Notice here now, he says, he deceiveth and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. That means Western European power led by the Catholic Church. In the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by the sword and did live. So which beast is that? Which is, again, the papacy as it was wounded by France. And it had that wound, and now the wound is being healed. The Pope is now coming into great power. The Catholic Church is normalizing the world as a good system. The system we're talking about, that's what we have to say. So notice here, it says you make an image. So the image to the beast, the thing that caused people to die was that if you don't bow to the Catholic system, you would be killed or run out of town, exiled or murdered. So we're told that soon is developing. So we're looking now to see, and I'm going to get to it in a few minutes, is America developing this character as recorded by John the Revelator? And it can we clearly see that this is America in view. So notice here, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, and that the image of the beast should both speak, that is legislatively, and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So this is where we get our clear understanding of what's going on here. That we're looking, so that's why I said yesterday, there is no evidence in my mind that American deep state is killing, because normally in the old world it was the Jesuits that did this. In our modern world it would be the CIA. So they're the deep state for us, and they're the one that kill like politicians abroad and assassinate people and overthrow countries. But I've not seen evidence yet. Hopefully I don't become the victim of this first, that the CIA is killing Christians. But we believe that this is soon to happen, and the Bible predicts that it will happen. So that the image of the beast should both should be, who don't worship the image of the beast should be killed. So if you don't bow to the system, they'll kill you. And he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand and in their forehead. Notice this now, verse 17, which is what I came here for. And that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And then in verse 18, the number is 666. As you know, 6 represent the first day of the week, which is man. So it's a man-made system, and it's not God, because God is 777. I'm not saying it's 777, but God is 7. Let's call it like that. Somebody go tattoo 7 in the head. So notice here, and that no man might buy or sell. So here's the question then. The question that I'm going to explore in the next few minutes with you here is this characteristic, not the killing part, because the killing part comes last, we hope, but is the part where America has developed this thing where it embargoes countries, sanction countries, tell countries that they can't buy or sell. And not just tell any country, rich and poor, free and bond. Doesn't matter if the country is rich country, poor country, whatever, free bond country. Is this a case? Is this characteristic here? And is the characteristic not just in an international affair? Because remember, my premise is always on a local level. Is the characteristic of America embargoing, sanctioning, siege warfare countries via buying or selling? Is this a characteristic that we can clearly demonstrate is America? And it seems like there's no other country on the planet that does this. Very fascinating. And we can definitely say yes. And it's not just that says America does this in an international of way. America does this locally. This is where we get, especially we saw this became a big issue under COVID, where Americans are shown as individually that they're into this sanction market of beast thing, because they have these Ken and Karens, and they'll call the police on you quick and try to get you to that they gang up on you to what they call it in the Me Too movement. I even forget it, but it was so big in my mind recently. But you know what the thing is, that said they cancel you. Okay, that's what it is, cancel culture. So is America the market beast culture, the cancel culture, the sanction culture, the embargo culture, and stuff like that? Not the American as the government only. I'm talking about the people locally. And we can say definitely yes. So 4 articles I'm going to share with you here. and I'm going to share the whole thing, but 4 questions. So these are the questions, just in general, what's going on out there, what people talking about. So the first one I'm going to go to is I put in the search in my search engine. So you can do this for yourself, just in case you hear me or you might think, what is he talking about? So the first question I search is along this line, but this is Quora. Where is it? Quora, right here. And I'll make them ask the question. I'll ask it a different way, but this is what I found. I couldn't find anything on this one. So why didn't any country sanction the U.S. after they invaded Iraq? Because remember, the whole concept of the sanctions against Russia is that Russia is doing an illegal war, and so the answer for it is to sanction. Why America's sanctions other country? Why not, Turkey or whatever? Why America? And why we are told that the Bible is talking about America? And why is it America living up to its character, as the Bible says? So again, no, there's no articles on this because America is the sanctioned country. Very, very fascinating. So notice here, why didn't any country sanction the U.S. after they invaded Iraq? So that's the question I was asked. And I'm not going to be able to read all the answers, but just for your discussion and our discussion here, because other people are fascinated by this discussion. I don't know if you are. This fascinating concept. Notice here, this person, Lee Roberts, answers on Quora, Quora. I don't know how you say that. I think Quora, right? He says, simply because the West are hypocrites. They don't care when a country of brown people is being bombed. That's why they didn't sanction Russia over Syria as they did sanction Russia over Ukraine. All right. Because they only care and are panic when white people or Caucasian looking people are killed. So I'm just reading. There's the first comment. I don't know about his understanding of stuff or not. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just saying what people are discussing out there. Another point here in Cora, this person said, this is Peter Lewick. He says, because the U.S. has a veto in the Security Council, Iraq had followed the demands or the UN after the first Gulf War, and that had been recognized by the UN inspectors and Security Council. The invasion was a violation of the UN Charter and Security Council, which I believe that's so. All right, Tao Vagchan. So this is somebody that's Mandarin. I think he's Chinese. Although today humans have created countless legal terms and codes of conduct, but in fact, the world still behaves like lawless jungle. So he's saying that's the reason why America attacked, did the sanctions and stuff, and nobody sanctioned America because ultimately he's saying, this guy says, the world still operate like a lawless jungle. Interesting. Why didn't Americans sanction China like what they did with Iran? So that's another question. So why America doesn't sanction China? I believe it's coming. Remember, America will sanction rich and poor, small and great. So I expect it. I expect them to sanction China and shoot themselves in the foot. Notice here, because U.S. does not dare sanction, do not work. When the United States want to impose sanction, it most often use military hegemon or financial hegemon, but it is obviously afraid to impose military sanction because China's current military force is so capable. And it continues. So I killed that Cora one. Want to go to another important piece here. And I want to do this one. So let's go to another one. This one now is from Yale. So this Yale piece here, I find it interesting. Because remember, what I'm trying to say is when I was young, I realized that if somebody said, oh no, you can't play with my toys, I'm like, well, I have toys, so it doesn't matter. Or you can't play with Johnny. Well, there's other friends, so I don't have to play with Johnny. I can go play with somebody else. But if I don't have no other friends or I don't have no toys, not playing with Johnny becomes a point. So the question then is, if some people say sanctions don't work, well, it depends who you're sanctioning. In other words, if you're sanctioning a little small island in the Caribbean, It will work because they can be crushed. But what happens when a bully go up against a big bad wolf, so to speak? It's harder. In other words, you can go after islands and it seem good. You can't do what you did to Black Americans and they can't defend themselves. They're internal. They can't defend themselves. They're defenseless. So it's good, but then what do you happen now? Because I was watching this and I was curious as to how is it going to work with Russia. So I was paying attention to this. I didn't believe it was going to work, and I don't believe the same thing with China because China is you have to crush them, and they are more sophisticated, advanced area. But if you go sanction Kenya, of course it's going to hurt them. Does that make sense? It's who you're sanctioning. In other words, as I say it again. Yes, if you have a son and he's mentally stable and he's whatever, and he can maintain isolation and he can maintain by himself, you can tell the mother can tell him all day long, don't play with don't play with your neighbor. Sure. But if he's on the road to become an incel and suicidal, that might hurt him. I'm gonna get to that in a second by God's grace. I don't even know where my time is. Okay. So this is from Yale. I don't want to show you that this article. I'm not going to get into it, but you can go read it for yourself. So I'd search this idea here of sanctions. How did Russia deal with the sanctions? And what I came up with is this interesting article from Yale that show you that says this is the school that George Bush I think credited from. And this school here is particularly interesting because again they show you the mindset of it's the people. People talk about institution, but it's the culture. The culture is a sanction culture. Notice here, over 1,000 companies have curtailed operations in Russia, but some remain. Right? That makes sense? So over 1,000 companies have curtailed operations in Russia, but some remain. And so they have on there, I can see NVIDIA, I can see JCB, I can see Intel, I can see Sony, I can see Visa, I can see Citigroup, I can see Hilton, I can see, the Olympics, FICO, I don't know who they be, Cummins, eBay, fascinating. So 1,000. So I'll read a piece of the article for you. This was updated in January 28, 2024. And notice it says here, since the invasion of Ukraine began, we have been tracking, this is Yale now, this is the young people at Yale, our future Mark of the Beast people. We have been tracking the response of well over 1,500 companies and counting. Over 1,000 companies have publicly announced that they are voluntarily curtailing operations in Russia to some degree and beyond the bare minimum legal required by international sanction. But some companies have continued to operate in Russia undeterred. Originally, a simple withdrawal versus remain list. Our list of companies now consists of 5 categories graded on a school style letter grade scale of A to F for the completeness of withdrawal. So basically, you can see how now places like Yale and Harvard and Princeton, those places, the little kids, those little monsters, gonna basically help to create the mark of the beast in the future on us, because you can see what they're doing there. They take all the big companies and they say, how did you enforce the mark of the beast on the markets of America and Europe on Russia? And now they grade these companies. So you get an A, I guess if you're doing good, and you get an F if you're doing good. This list below is updated continuously by Jeffrey Sonnenfeld and his team of expert research fellows and students of Yale Chief Executive Leadership Institute to reflect new announcements from companies in as close to real time as possible. And our list already garnered in extensive coverage for its role in helping catalyze the mass corporate exodus from Russia. You see these little people here? When this list was first published, the week of February 28, 2022, only several dozen companies had announced their departure. We are humbled that our lists have helped galvanize nearly 1,000 companies to withdraw in the time since. So the little people over here has put pressure on companies by coming up with a list. I can see 3M there, all kind of companies. and they withdraw from Russia. Now, here's my premise now, because remember I said to you, telling me that I can't play with your toys, say I can't play with, I don't know, Foot Locker or HP toys. It works if you have no other option. There's, Etsy, I can see Etsy on there. So it works if you have another option, because remember, the embargo is that say you're going to force small and great rich and poor to not be able to buy or sell. Now, how you going to not be able to buy or sell? By making the companies not sell to them. Or if it's Visa, make you can't do transaction on Visa. This only works when I was a child. If the child that is the embargo is being said to happen with you, if that child is the person that's been embargoed, if that person being embargoed don't have no other friends, or they have some self conscious problem, or they have some, they have issues. In the issue with, I see Roku there, in the issue with an LG, as in the issue with Russia, what you find here is that yes, it will work if Russia have no other person to do business with and they don't have no companies. And this is what I remember Obama said and lied to us. He said that Russia basically they have nothing. They have nothing to offer. True, if that's the reality. As I say, if you go to some African country or some black place or whatever, and you embargo them, you can make you feel like you're the greatest, biggest, baddest, because they can't withstand the embargo. But in Russia's situation, it's been fascinating because Russia had China, Iran, other countries that it could do business with. Plus, it had other nations around the Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, the country over there, I can't remember the countries. So, yeah, you had other countries it could do business with, North Korea, stuff like that. If it had no other country and it only had the two Western countries in Asia, which is Japan and South Korea, and you had the seven Western nations and then America, then it would be cooked. And it would have not continued to 2 years later. Keep fighting the war. So it was interesting to watch. Because if you can be isolated by the people embargoing you, then it's easy for them to say the embargo worked. But if you can't, it doesn't work. And I remember observing this when I was a child. So that's why for me, I was like, oh, I'm going to be fascinated. Because remember, it's going to go after rich and poor, free and bond, whatever. So watching American companies do this, where you can't buy or sell from them. So you can't buy or sell from MasterCard, or you can't use MasterCard. You can't buy McCormick vanilla. But you probably can find vanilla from somewhere else. Does it make sense? McDonald's, well, they're the only people kill cows and put them into patties. So it works if you can be isolated, but if you just can't buy yourself from American companies. But if you have other companies to buy yourself from, a lot of Chinese companies and stuff, well, and if you pay attention, this is what happened. So this is why the issue is, I understand. Like, again, if it does, now here's the thing that to me that I was observing that was crazy. And I was saying, yeah, Russia is a country of 160 million people, 140 something, 150 something million people, whatever the numbers. Take your pick. And the thing is, you have to look at these companies now in a different way. Don't look at these companies in the sense that they embargoed Russia. If Russia was, say, like some backwater country per se, what you have to look at is that they withdraw themselves from making money from Russia. I say that's a different story. You see, it depends on the situation. In other words, this is what it is. Nike cannot sell to 160, 150, 100, there's 140 million people. Nike can't sell to them. Nike, basically following the simpletons over there in Yale, shot themselves in the foot, and the president. That's how you see, I look at it this way. Now, does it hurt Russia that Nike don't sell to them anymore? Yeah, it does. Does it hurt Russia that 3M don't sell for them, or NVIDIA, the most advanced chips in the world, don't sell to them? Yeah, it does. Advanced AI chips. Because again, remember, if Johnny can't play with you, it hurts you. Okay, you're going to feel bad. You're like, man, I like Johnny. And, I like hanging with him. And his mom tell me I can't play with him anymore. I didn't have no friend named Johnny, so to speak. So that's why I use Johnny. See, it depends on how you're looking at it. You could say, okay, you can't go over there and you can't go in the hood with the black people. Sure. If your son wasn't committing suicide the next day, then it would work. Does it get what my point here? You understand? If you have the highest rate of suicide and you're saying, oh no, I can't talk to you, like you're hurting me, it gonna hurt me because I liked you. And my intention was I just like you and I wanted to play with you. But I'm not suicidal. It's gonna hurt me, but it's gonna hurt you more. You see, that's where the problem is. You see, when you look at it like that, you have to look at it's reverse. You know, this world is reverse thinking. You have to look at it. Adidas now just cut itself off of a market of 100 and something million people. And what happened now? A company that was making a competitive product, say in China, was able to enter into that market that before they had too much competition. They had stiff competition from one of the juggernauts in the world. Now they don't have to deal with that competition anymore because that competition killed itself. Because the simpletons over Yale, imagine those are the bright people, they're nuts. They don't understand basic human psychology. They now say, oh no, we're going to force you. So now they have to bow to that. Oh yes, okay, we're going to embargo. Because think about it. This is why I say when Satan go after Christ, it don't make no sense. Like, where are you going after Christ? Like, you can't breed bread. And it's the same thing when you have in a society, people like, oh no, you can't do this. You can't. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't do this. And remember, if you hear me say something, the primary thing that really blew this up in my mind is church. Because I realized when I was in the church, I remember going to churches after churches, and there was no young white people in the church. We were the only young people in the church, and they would be like, "No, you got to go. You're not allowed to in our church." And I'm like, I mean, for probably a hot Sabbath, I might feel bad, but I'm like, what? I'm the only game in town, so I'm like, okay, I'm out. I go independent. Like, it's not hurting me. I'm I'm losing something. There's no young people in your church. But I realize these people are full of themselves so much that they think, oh no, we gonna stop. You gonna stop me? You can't stop me. I can be by myself. I'm okay. I don't get depressed. All right. So that's just reality. And I started realizing real quickly, it's the culture. They have a culture that is developed very negatively, that they think they're stopping you by telling you that you can't play with their toys. And I'm like, no, I just it wasn't like, why you here? Because I didn't know you were salty. That's the thing. I didn't know you were like that. I just, like, as I say, you go over to Johnny house, and Johnny's all depressed and gonna turn incel, and you're like, oh no, you can't play with Johnny. Like, I can play with Johnny, and Johnny needs help. You don't see Johnny needs help. And as I say, I dealt with a few women who were like this, and I don't know what is it about these women, and they would, as I say, I know a few of them now, and the kids turn incel, grow up to be turned. I'm not talking. This is not hypothetical. I'm talking. This part is not hypothetical. This is real. No, quite a few women who like this. Oh, their kids are the special and the greatest. Then the kids come out suicidal, and I'm like, what is going on? And I saw, oh, it's the same thing I saw when I was a child. What I didn't know is I was going to see it on an international level. You look at these companies, BP, all these companies. Who they hurting? Can I zoom in here? That's Carlsberg. Okay, so there's another article I want to say here. So I want to go to two more before we leave. So this is Reuters, and Reuters now, this article I will share it. As you say, you can go read all this stuff here. Where am I at? Okay, so Moscow takes control over assets of Western company. So this is Reuters reporting May 20th, 2024, right? So look at this now. So what basically they're saying is that what Moscow did. See, remember, no countries couldn't do this. The only two countries I think can do this is Russia and China. America can seize assets, but the only countries that can do this is America and China, because only Russia and China also, because only they could say, listen, you can't do anything about it because they have the nuclear bomb. So this has nothing to do, because America will say, you hear the president say, Russia is trying to destabilize the world order. Well, so is Hamas, but Hamas can't affect the world order because Hamas have no nuclear bombs. But Russia can do it because Russia can seize the assets. And what are you going to do about it? You see, so it's nothing to do with world order. There's no order in this thing. It's a wild jungle. It has to do with who the biggest and the baddest. But if you're dealing with somebody that, listen, I'm not affected, I can go my way, then it changes. So now, they says that Kremlin has seized assets of some Western companies in Russia through decrees signed by President Vladimir Putin. an order to relate law orders related to lawsuit over halted projects or blocked funds amid Western sanction, and below is the list. So they have Agri Terra, Russia seized their assets. Amedia, Amedia, never heard about them. Russia seized their assets. Commerzbank, I never heard about them. This is DE, so that's a German company. Danone, Danone, I heard about them. It's a yogurt company, right? Something like that. Deutsche Bank seized their assets over 209 something, 250 something $1 million. Fortum, never heard about them. Fraport, DE again, German company. HE, I don't know what HE is. HE before. JP Morgan, have you ever heard about that company? That's one of the best, probably the best bank in the world. Love them. It seized their assets, seized over, how much did they seize from my bank here, my beloved bank? Russian bank, I think $439 million. I don't know that company. Wolf, Uniper. So they're seizing quite a few assets of companies. Carlsberg ceased doing business in Russia. That's a beer company. They seized them also. Very interesting, right? So Russia being just grabbing their assets. Could any other country do this? America can grab countries' assets because they have the power to do it. But did we ever see a situation where another country could grab assets? So it's not an issue of grabbing assets. It's not an issue about legality. The Iraq War was never about legality and what was right and just. It was about who's the biggest, baddest cat and who can do anything about it, whatever. So when I was younger, this is what I saw. I saw the same type of behavior, and I realized, it's nothing to do with whatever. It depends. As I say, you could say, Johnny can't play with me, right? And I say, depends. If Johnny is the popular kid, then it might hurt. But if Johnny's not the popular kid and he's a nerd, well, what does it hurt? Let's be straight here, right? It doesn't do anything. And if it's another kid, one popular kid, and the other popular kid don't want to talk to the other popular kid, well, it doesn't matter because each of them have their own friend base. So it doesn't matter. They don't even have to talk to each other. It only matters when it is the person really need it. But if the person don't need it, it didn't matter. And that's to me how I saw life when I grew up. I didn't need to be around people per se. I was always around people, in other words. I always had friends around. So if there was some kid in this community that their parents didn't want you to hang out with them, it didn't matter because you have enough friends that it was actually sometimes too many friends. All right. So it didn't matter. But you see, it matters if you now do this to Grenada or you do it to some poor country, some little backwater country that they can't even feed themselves. And you know, and I think this is what really happened. Because the question in my mind over the years, and as I say, the question in my mind over the years is why did this character develop? I understand Jim Crow. So what I really believe is that the embargo culture and the mark of the beast culture and the cancel culture developed in America. I think it started with slavery and then with the Jim Crow with black people where the white community thought, oh, I'm better than you and you can't drink up my water fountain. I'm going to take away my toys from you. You're not allowed in my community, segregation, red line, all that stuff. And I think slowly but surely it developed this concept in their mind. And I think the end product is going to be the mark of the beast. Whereas develop this concept in their mind where if you say try to come to their community or come to their park or oh no you're not allowed here, and so it's just that exclusivity mind. But I think what it is now, they have taken that concept and they've applied it to church, and then they've gone bigger now where they applied it to on the worldwide level. And so in their mind, oh no, I'm can sanction everybody because everybody must be black people and or Iraq or so it's always like that. Oh, we can destroy Afghanistan and they won't fight back, or it's always this concept. You see it with Israel. Oh, they're the greatest military. They're the greatest secret service. Spy agents. It's all this type of hype talk. If you're not dealing with peers, does that make sense? It's like you wouldn't put a heavyweight to fight a lightweight, but in boxing. But in society, we do that all the time. We're unfair. We match and then we get cocky in our mind. So what I think it is that say they were doing this to Black Americans and it just whipping them, and that's the reality because they couldn't defend themselves. It's impossible. And so I think it's like the pride has gotten to their heads and they're thinking, oh, I can do it to the Chinese, I can do it to Russia, because they did it to Iraq. Iraq couldn't stop them, and they killed Gaddafi. And it just got, I think it's out of control, and I think we're going to end up with a mark of the beast. When the COVID started, I'm not supposed to say that word. I guess it's banned. But when the pestilence 19 or COVID 19 or whatever this craziness, you saw them. They got excited. Oh, we're gonna force you. We're gonna fire you. See, it's that mindset. And so every time I see it, I'm like, oh, it's the culture. Oh, pestilence 19 start. You don't know who started it. Oh, we need to get this experimental vaccine. Donald Trump was a narcissist. He's a narcissist. And so he didn't want to have a pandemic on his hand because he's the first American president in probably over the whole country's history to have a plague on his hand. Just cursed, he and his followers. And so you have this thing start running, and oh, I don't want to look bad, so I have to stop it. So what you do? You do experimental vaccine, no testing, and then you start forcing people with this market abuse as if you don't take this vaccine, you're gonna lose your job, and you can't go in society. Total market abuse. But most people don't pick this up. I said this is the culture of the people. But I think you really develop out of Jim Crow. You have a group of people that you could keep down and just bludgeon and beaten, and you just keep beating them. And because they couldn't do anything about it, that you start thinking, well, we can do it in Iraq, we can do it everywhere, and we can do it in church. And now they've got themselves out of church because it's unchristlike behavior. This is just barbaric behavior. Sanction and siege warfare. It's just barbaric. Starving people have nothing to do with anything. In Luke chapter 13, verse 23, it says, then said one unto him, Lord, are there few that be saved? And he said unto them, strive to enter in, strive to enter in at the straight gate. For many, I say unto you, will seek to enter and shall not be able to. You can see with a culture like this, it's very difficult. You see it's just plaster. I've even seen the top preachers in the church promote this type of stuff, and they don't realize they're marketing beasts. Talking about, oh, this country shouldn't have this. I'm thinking they're crazy. When once the master of the house is risen up, and I shut the door, and ye begin to stand without and to knock at the door, saying, Lord, Lord, open unto us. And he shall answer and say unto you, I know you not whence you are. Then shall ye begin to say, we have eaten and drunk in thy presence, and thou hast taught in our streets. But he shall say, I tell you, I know you not from whence you are. Depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, when ye shall see Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all the prophets in the kingdom of God, and you yourself thrust out. And they shall come from the east and from the west and from the north and from the south, and shall sit down in the kingdom of God. And behold, there are last which shall be first, and there are first which shall be last. So, yeah, I guess you could have Johnny, and Johnny won't play with nobody. Johnny thinks he's better than everybody. And somehow, you explained it to me. How did that work out to be so much mass shooters, incels, suicide, drug overdose? It's just destructive young males that are just not doing well, but they think that they're better than everybody else. This life is very weird and contrary. It's reverse thinking. You would think the child that respect other people and shares toys, that child probably should be messed up. But there's a child that is like, oh no, don't talk to this person. You're better than this person. You're superior to this person, and they're the one end up suicidal and incels and stuff like that. This life is weird. It's like you see America isolating itself, but it's the best. It's the greatest nation. War, war, war. And it's just pure suicide and death and destruction. Become a death cult. Very strange development, but here we are. And these things never stop. Let us pray. Now, Father, who art in heaven, I pray that you may deliver us from evil. Pray that you may teach us, dear Lord, and have us, dear Lord, choose to be friendly and be neighbors to all people. May you bless us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. I thank you for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live Tomorrow we should talk about natural health. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.